Back when I first retired, I figured it was the end of the line, the end of all those frantic days, the endless to-do lists, and yeah, even that nagging sense of purpose that kept me grinding. I remember sitting there in my kitchen on day one, staring at this blank calendar on the wall like it was mocking me. What now? I thought. Am I just gonna shuffle around the house forever? At 70, it hit me hard, like the world was still zooming by, and I was stuck in neutral, feeling more lost than free. But here's the thing. Over time, that fog lifted. Now I see retirement not as some big finish, but as a slower, gentler start. In all that quiet, I've carved out room to really live, not just get by, but squeeze some real joy out of it. And surprisingly, I'm happier some days than I ever was clocking in at the office. It wasn't any grand overhaul that did it either. No exotic trips or fancy hobbies. Nah, it was these tiny daily habits I stumbled into, the kind I never figured would count for much. But damn if they didn't start lighting up my mornings again, one little spark at a time. So today I'm gonna share 9 of them with you. The ones that pulled me back to feeling joyful, peaceful, and like my life still had some meaning. This ain't from some self-help book or expert's TED Talk. It's straight from me, 70 years in the rear view, still fumbling my way forward and figuring it out as I go. Let's dive in. Habit 1. Dress for yourself, not the world. I was not prepared for the stillness. The world outside kept moving, but mine slowed to a whisper. For the first few weeks, I drifted. I stayed in pajamas most of the day. I skipped shaving. I wore the same old sweater 3 days in a row. I told myself, who cares? I am not going anywhere. And maybe no one else cared. But soon I realized I did. Something subtle started to change in me. I felt disconnected, not just from the world, but from myself. The man I saw in the mirror looked like a stranger, tired, faded, not the man I used to be. I thought to myself, is this what the rest of my life is going to look like? One morning, for no special reason, I reached for a shirt I used to wear to family dinners, a light blue button-down. I tucked it in, combed my hair, and even dusted off the old watch my wife gave me one anniversary. I remember catching my reflection in the mirror and thinking, there you are. That small gesture, getting dressed as if the day mattered, brought me back to myself. Since that day, I have made it a habit to dress with intention even if I am not leaving the house. It is not about style or formality, it is about dignity, about showing up to my own life. My daughter once asked me why I looked so put together just to sit on the porch. I smiled and said, because I still have days to live and I want to live them well. The truth is, clothes carry memory. A sweater your grandchild hugged you in, a shirt you wore on a good day. When you wear something that makes you feel like you, it brings energy back into the day. It reminds you that you are not invisible. You are still here, still valuable, still you. So, I encourage you, tomorrow morning, pick out something nice, not for others, for yourself. You do not need an event to look like someone worth seeing, because you already are. Habit 2, say kind words to yourself. Growing up, I was taught to be tough. Like many men of my generation, I learned to hold it in, power through, never complain. I spent my life providing, fixing, solving, but no one ever taught me how to speak gently to myself. No one ever said, you can be kind to the man in the mirror. For years, my inner voice was harsh. I replayed old mistakes. I criticized my decisions. I measured my worth by what I produced. After I retired, that voice only got louder. Without a job title, a paycheck, a reason to get up early, I began to wonder, what good am I now? One day, I caught myself whispering under my breath, you are useless. The words hit hard, not because they were true, but because I believed them for a moment, and that scared me. That night, I sat quietly and remembered something my grandson once told me. He had drawn a picture of me and wrote, "My grandpa is strong and smart and kind." I looked at that drawing and thought, why can he see it but I cannot? The next morning, I tried something new. I stood in front of the mirror, looked myself in the eyes and said, "You are doing your best." It felt strange at first, almost foolish, but I kept at it. Every day I said something kind. You are enough. You are still growing. You matter even in this quieter season. Over time, those words began to soften the edges inside me. They made room for forgiveness, for peace, for a different kind of strength, the kind that does not need to prove anything. Just being kind to myself reminded me that I am still allowed to be human, to make mistakes, to rest, to feel proud of who I have become. Now it is part of my daily ritual. Before I step out of the bedroom, I say something encouraging, not grand or dramatic, just real. If you have spent years being hard on yourself, maybe it is time to speak to yourself like someone you love. You have carried so much. You have come so far. You deserve your own kindness. Habit 3. Create a morning ritual that is just yours. When I was working, mornings were a blur. The alarm would scream at 6 in the morning, and I would jump out of bed, already late in my mind. There was coffee, traffic, deadlines. I was moving fast, but I was not present. And I did that for decades. Then retirement came. Suddenly there was no rush, no clock chasing me. At first, it felt freeing, but also aimless. I would wander around the kitchen, wondering what to do next. But something inside me longed for rhythm, not routine in the strict sense, but something sacred. So I created a morning ritual. Every morning now, I rise early, just as the sun begins to touch the sky. I make my coffee the old-fashioned way, with the kettle and the pour-over. I take it to the porch, sit in the same chair and let the quiet wrap around me. Some days, I bring a book. Other days, I just sit. I listen to the birds, watch the trees, and feel the warmth of the cup in my hands. That time is mine, not borrowed, not scheduled, just mine. It is not about what I do, but how I feel doing it. That first hour of the day sets the tone for everything else. When I begin in peace, I carry that peace with me. It is not magic. It is intention. I know not everyone has a porch or a garden, but a ritual can be as simple as lighting a candle, saying a prayer, stretching for 5 minutes, or writing a single line in a journal. The point is not perfection. It is presence. When you give yourself the gift of a quiet, personal beginning each day, you remind your soul that life is not over. It is simply unfolding in a new way. I often think, if I had known how powerful this could be, I would have started years ago. But maybe, just maybe, this time in my life is when I needed it most. Create something that is just yours. A small act of self-respect. A moment to say, "This day belongs to me." Habit 4. Plan 1. Small thing to look forward to. One of the biggest surprises in retirement was not the free time, but the feeling that all the days started to look the same. Without a work schedule or deadlines, mornings and afternoons blended together like watercolor on wet paper. At first, I enjoyed the ease of it, but after a while, I felt myself drifting. I realized that what I missed was not work itself, but having something to anticipate, something simple to give the day shape. So I started a small habit. Each morning, I choose one thing to look forward to. Not a big event, not a long trip, not a complicated plan. Just one small moment that brings a spark to my day. Some days it is calling my grandson after he gets out of school. Other days it is watering the tomato plants in the backyard or baking a loaf of bread the way my wife used to. Sometimes it is as simple as sitting down in the afternoon with a warm blanket and listening to an old record from a singer who kept me company in my 20s. Having something to look forward to gives the day a gentle anchor. It creates a thread of joy that pulls me from morning to night with a quiet sense of purpose. I realized that joy does not always come from grand adventures. At this age, it often lives in smaller moments, softer moments, a walk around the block, a good book waiting on the nightstand, a conversation with a friend I have not spoken to in a while. When you choose a moment of joy, you give meaning to time. You say, "This day is not empty. This day holds something for me." It is a reminder that life is still offering gifts, even if they come wrapped in simplicity. And the truth is, small joy adds up. When you stack enough of those moments together, the days do not feel repetitive anymore. They feel full. So if you ever feel stuck or lost in the quiet of retirement, start here. Plan one small thing each day that makes you smile, even just for a minute. Let anticipation become a friend again. Life may have slowed down, but it has not stopped giving you reasons to feel alive. Sometimes those reasons are small, but they are real. Let them pull you forward gently, one day at a time. Habit 5. Take a break from the news. I grew up in a generation that believed staying informed was a sign of responsibility. For most of my life, I started my day with the newspaper or the morning news on television. But everything changed over the last decade. The news became louder, angrier, faster. Every headline seemed designed to raise my blood pressure. I found myself beginning each day already tense before I had even taken my first sip of coffee. One morning, my son visited and noticed the news playing in the background. He said, "Dad, why do you start your day with stress you cannot control?" At first, I brushed it off. I told him I needed to know what was happening in the world. But later that night, I thought about his words. I realized I was carrying anxiety that was never mine to carry. I was letting the noise of the world drown out the peace in my own home. So I made a small change. I turned off the news in the morning. Instead of starting my day with political arguments or bad headlines, I chose silence, or soft music, or the sound of the kettle boiling. I did not cut out the news completely, but I limited it to a short window in the afternoon, once my mind had already settled into the day. The difference was remarkable. My heart felt lighter, my thoughts clearer. I was not walking around with the weight of the world on my shoulders. Without all the noise, I began noticing things I had ignored for years. The way the sunlight moved across the kitchen table, the sound of my neighbor's wind chimes, the simple pleasure of reading a book without distraction. Taking a break from the news does not mean you stop caring. It means you choose peace over chaos. It means you recognize that your emotional well-being is just as important as being informed. At 70 years old, I finally understand that not every battle in the world is mine to fight. Some things I simply have to let go. If the world feels heavy, try stepping back. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to choose quiet. And you might be surprised by how much beauty returns to your day when you stop inviting noise into the first hour of your morning. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your older self is the permission to let the world wait. Habit 6. Write letters, even if you do not send them. There was a time in my life when I wrote letters all the time. To my wife when we were young and apart, to friends in the military, to my parents during holidays. Back then, writing a letter was more than just sending information. It was a way to connect, to think clearly, to feel something deeper. But after email, text messages, and video calls took over, I stopped. Everyone wanted faster, shorter, quicker. And so, without noticing, I lost touch not just with other people, but with that part of myself that used to take time to reflect in writing. A few years into retirement, on a day when I was feeling especially quiet and thoughtful, I picked up a pen and wrote a letter, not to anyone in particular, just to myself. I wrote about how I was feeling, what I missed, what I had learned recently. I did not plan to send it. I just needed to write it. That day, something shifted. Putting my thoughts on paper slowed down my mind. It helped me untangle the emotions I had pushed aside. It reminded me of the value in processing life, not just living it. Since then, I have made it a habit to write at least one short letter every few days, sometimes to my children, sometimes to an old friend I have not seen in years, sometimes to my younger self, and yes, sometimes to my wife, though I do not talk much about her. She is still here with me in the quiet ways. Most of these letters I do not send. They are not written for reaction. They are written for release. They help me make peace with the things I cannot change. They help me remember moments that might have otherwise faded. They help me feel seen, even if only by myself. There is something sacred about writing. The weight of the pen, the sound of the paper, the time it takes to shape a thought into words. It slows you down. It draws you inward. And at this age, when the world moves too fast, slowing down is a gift. If you have not written in a while, I encourage you to try. Do not worry about grammar. Do not worry about getting it right. Just write to your child, to your past self, to someone you miss, or even to life itself, and then fold it and keep it somewhere close. One day someone might read it, or maybe no one will. But that is not the point. The point is that your thoughts, your memories, your voice, they still matter. And there is something powerful about putting them on paper and letting them live outside of you. Habit 7. Keep a joy jar. A few winters ago, I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring out the window, feeling a little blue. The sky was gray and the house felt too quiet. That kind of quiet that can feel heavy. It was not sadness exactly, just a sense that the color had drained from the day. My granddaughter came over later that afternoon with a small gift. It was a glass jar, empty except for a little handwritten note inside. The note read, "Today I laughed so hard I dropped my sandwich." I chuckled and asked what the jar was for. She said, "It is my joy jar. I write down one happy thing every day and put it inside. When I feel bad, I read them again." I thought it was cute, but I did not think much of it at the time. Still, I placed the jar on a shelf in the kitchen. A few days later, after a walk where I saw two squirrels chasing each other like kids in a schoolyard, I laughed to myself and thought, that was nice. I came home, wrote it down, and dropped it in the jar. That was the beginning of something simple and quietly beautiful. Each day I started noticing the good. Not because everything was perfect, far from it, but because I was looking for it. A warm slice of pie, a bird singing on the fence, a call from my old fishing buddy. One memory, one sentence, one little note at a time. Now the jar is nearly full. On the hard days, and yes, even now there are hard days, I pull out a few slips and read them. Each one brings me back to a moment when life felt warm, or funny, or comforting. They remind me that joy still visits me. Even in this slower chapter of life, keeping a joy jar does not take much effort. Just a scrap of paper, a pen, and a moment to pause and ask, what made me smile today? Some days, the answer comes easily. Other days, I have to search a bit deeper. But there is always something. Always. The older I get, the more I believe that happiness is not something that happens to you. It is something you notice. And this little jar has helped me become a better noticer of life's quiet blessings. Try it. Start tonight. Write down one thing, just one, that made you feel good today. And tomorrow, add another. Over time, you will find that even the smallest joys, when collected, can become something greater than sadness, something stronger than silence. Habit 8. Sit with nature, even for 10 minutes. There is a certain kind of stillness that only nature can offer. Not the silence of an empty room, but the kind of quiet that breathes, moves, and surrounds you. I did not truly appreciate it until I slowed down. Until retirement gave me the time to notice things I used to walk right past. These days, I make it a habit to sit outside, even if it is just for 10 minutes. Some mornings, it is on the porch with my coffee. Other times, it is under the tree in the backyard, where the breeze plays with the leaves and the birds make their morning announcements. I do not bring a phone. I do not bring a book. I just bring myself. At first, it felt odd, just sitting, doing nothing. But as I allowed myself to be still, I realized I was not doing nothing at all. I was listening, watching, being. I noticed how the wind sounds different in the morning than in the afternoon, how squirrels have their own routines, how the sky changes color every single day and never repeats itself. Being in nature, even briefly, reminds me that life does not have to be rushed to be meaningful. A tree does not grow faster by being anxious. A bird does not sing better by worrying. Everything in nature simply is, and that is enough. Sometimes I sit and think about the people I love. Sometimes I sit and think about nothing at all. But every time I give myself those 10 minutes, I come back inside lighter, calmer, more connected to the world around me and to the world inside me. You do not need a forest or a mountain to experience this. A small balcony, a quiet park bench, even just a patch of sunlight near a window. Nature is not picky. It will meet you where you are. If your days have started to feel too heavy or too repetitive, I encourage you to step outside. No expectations, no goals. Just sit. Let the wind touch your skin. Let the sun warm your shoulders. Let the rhythm of the world slow your heart just a little. You may be surprised by how deeply healing that can be. The older I get, the more I believe this. Peace is not something you chase. It is something you make room for, and nature is one of the best places to start. Habit 9. Say thank you. Out loud, every night. There is something sacred about the end of the day. The world gets quiet, the light softens, and the air carries a different kind of weight. In that stillness, I have found one of the most powerful habits of all, saying 2 simple words, thank you. I say them out loud, every night. Just before I turn out the light, not in a grand ceremonial way, just softly, honestly, like I am speaking to life itself. At first, I did it almost by accident. I had had a long day, nothing extraordinary, just good. I got to talk to my daughter. The soup turned out just right, and I found a photo I had not seen in years. That night, as I pulled the blanket up, I whispered, thank you. It came out without me planning it, but the warmth that followed, that was real. Now it has become my closing ritual. I do not list out everything I am thankful for. I do not overthink it. I simply let the day settle and then I say it. Thank you. Some nights it is easier. Some nights it is harder, especially on days that feel lonely or difficult. But even then, the words matter, because they are not just about what happened. They are about recognizing that I am still here. Gratitude, I have found, is not about pretending everything is fine. It is about noticing, even when things are hard, that something within you is still choosing to keep going, still choosing to hope, still choosing to see beauty in small things. At 70 years old, I have lived through great joy and deep sorrow. I have known love, and I have known loss. And yet, every night I say, thank you. It reminds me that life, even in its quieter, slower form, is still a gift. If you try just one habit from everything I have shared, let it be this. End your day with gratitude. Say it out loud. Whisper it if you must. But let your heart hear it. Let your spirit recognize that, despite everything, you made it through another day. And that is something worth honoring. Now that you have heard all 9 habits, I hope 1 or 2 spoke to your heart. They are not complicated. They do not require much, just a little time, a little intention, and a willingness to treat this stage of life not as an ending, but as a beginning with softer edges and deeper roots. If you are still here watching, I thank you. And I hope you remember this. You are not too old to feel joy. You are not too late to find peace, and your life, even now, still has so much worth living.